Hello and welcome to Celebrating the Difference Black Fathers Make, a production of the Black Female Fatherhood Scholars Network. This platform seeks to amplify, elevate, and uplift understanding by centering the lived experiences, assets, and needs of Black fathers. Our network desires to change the narrative about Black fathers because we believe that in strengthening Black fathers, we strengthen Black families. Each episode and event, we will explore current research and pressing issues surrounding Black fathers while celebrating their dignity and their humanity. You can learn more about BFFSN by visiting www.bffsn.com or following us on social media. My name is Kelly Hawley, and I will be your host for this webinar. I want to introduce our founder and president, Dr. Brianna Lemons. Dr. Lemons, take it away.
Thank you, Kelly. So I'd like to thank everyone for coming out this evening. We realize that you could be so many other places. We know that there are many things going on this weekend with Father's Day as well as Juneteenth. And so we thank you for taking this time out to be with us. I'll just say a little bit more about who we are as a network, and then I'll show a brief video, and then we'll move into the discussion. So as Kelly mentioned, we are a network of Black female fatherhood scholars. And for us, scholars encompasses not just researchers or academicians, but also practitioners and community organizers as well. And so we all come together for this common purpose, which is to uplift Black fathers and Black families through research, education, and training. And as Kelly mentioned, we believe that if we can strengthen Black fathers, we can also strengthen Black families. And so I have a video, just a brief clip here that I'd like to share with you that I think drives this message home in a way that helps you to better understand who we are and what we do.
So I wanted to sort of start by framing our discussion by talking a little bit about this idea of Black women in fatherhood. As Black women doing this work in the field of fatherhood, we're often challenged and questioned about why we do this work, what we know about fatherhood, what we believe about fathers. We all have a stake in the Black family, and that as Black women, we understand and we know that we will never be men, but we all have a stake in the success and the well-being of Black families, and we believe that if we can strengthen Black fathers, we can in turn strengthen Black families. And so that's really foundational to our beliefs as a network. In addition, we also believe that there's a need for reconciliation work. And what we mean by this is that we know that historically Black men have not had favorable relationships with societal systems. And we also know that women are often at the forefront of those systems. And so we believe that Black men and the world need to see Black women standing in solidarity with them as a way of reconciling broken systems and righting historical wrongs. And so we believe that this work that we are doing as a collective is a part of the reconciliation process. We also believe that we offer a unique perspective on fatherhood. Clearly, we all see that we're all women. We enter this work as wives and confidants of Black men, as daughters of Black men, as mothers of Black boys and men. And this perspective, we believe, is needed in order to fully understand the impact that Black fathers have on society. We want to make space for representation of Black women in fatherhood, and we also want to be a source of encouragement for Black women to do this work unapologetically.
Ooh, it gets me fired up every time. I love that video. I love it. I do. I really do. So those are the links on the screen if you want to reach out and follow us on social media across all the platforms. We're there. I want us to give some space and time just to our distinguished guests that we have with us. And so I'll introduce each one of you. I'm just gonna say your name, and then in just a moment, I'll ask you each to introduce yourselves and explain just a little bit about the work that you're doing. And where you're located, because I know we're all across the United States at this point. Yay, the technology of Zoom. And so I wanted to start out by just introducing, we have with us the legend that is Dr. Cassandra Bolar, and we are so excited to have her expertise in research and in academia and in policy to sit with us in this time, in this conversation. We have A.D. Walker, who is doing some amazing work on the ground with Black men, Black fathers, strengthening them. We have Derek Reynolds, who is also doing great work in the community. And we have, who else am I missing? David Williams? Yes, Mr. David Williams, who is also bringing his expertise and his professionalism to bear on this conversation. And that's what I hope for this time that we have together, that this would be a conversation for us to engage with each other and to offer up our own lived experiences as well as our expertise. So speaking as a practitioner myself and someone who is also a scholar and a bit of a nerd, I just want to welcome everybody to the conversation and say thank you for giving us your time. You could have spent your Friday in so many different ways, and you chose to be here with us and to lend a voice to this conversation. So thank you. Dr. Bolar, can you start us off by just talking briefly about the work that you do and what you are bringing to bear in this conversation?
Most definitely. Just so honored and delighted to be here this evening to celebrate fathers. Most of my work focuses on looking at paternal engagement and intergenerational fathering. And I also work with the National African American Child and Family Research Center housed at Morehouse School of Medicine. I'm a practitioner as well. We do a lot of community engaged work where we join in partnership with the community to, identify research needs and or really just basic, community needs, and to work together to find solutions together. So that's a little bit of the work that I do there as well.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for lifting that up. AD, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and the work that you're doing?
Sure. Again, thank you, everyone, for inviting me on. Ms. Kelly, I know it's the third time's the charm. We've been trying to record for a while. My name is Anthony A.D. Walker. I'm founder of Brothers of Legacy, and our goal is to get men to be more engaged and active in the community. What we do right now, we have a daily podcast where we talk about men issues, Black men issues, Black father issues, and all the barriers that come along with that. And we have engaging conversations. My goal is to not be sensational, but to be informational, to one, learn, grow, and express certain things that help us become better. And we come on, just as a quick plug, every day, well, almost every day, Tuesday through Friday at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we're on all platforms. So definitely check us out. And that's what we do every day. All right. Thank you.
I love it. I love it. That daily commitment to the podcast grind. It's fantastic. David Williams, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and the expertise that you're bringing to the table today?
Yes. And as AD mentioned, thank you guys for having us, letting me be a part of this conversation. I'm a fatherhood advocate as well as a youth mentor. So I pretty much kind of just mentor youth, as I mentioned, and advocate for fathers. I teach fatherhood courses as far as like teaching them how to co-parent, how to navigate through some of the system, as well as how to support, find programs to support themselves as they try to do their best to be fathers. So yeah, I'm just out there in the streets trying to help one father at a time.
I love it. I love it. Thank you. Thank you for the expertise that you're bringing to the table. Derek Reynolds, do you want to go last for us and introduce yourself, please?
Hi, my name is Derek Reynolds. Like everybody else said, I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. I think having you guys do this is definitely beneficial to the fatherhood movement because we definitely need those allies. I live in in Kansas, where it's definitely difficult for fathers to get good rights for their children. We call it a mother state. And the reason why I started the Hug a Dad Foundation is because I was having a tremendously difficult time with navigating the family court system and, earning rights for my son, my oldest son. And honestly, it's like I felt alone, like going through that, because it was like, I didn't really feel like I had anybody backing me, even though I had a lawyer. So, I thought my situation was the worst, and I watched other dads go through it, and their situation was way worse than mine. So I just wanted to start this foundation. And what we do is, I've been helping dads who have just, less knowledge than I do with the family court system. I give them the knowledge that I have, so that at least the same things that I feel happen to me won't happen to them. And, I've been doing it, and I've helped a few, individually, as Mr. David Williams said, one father at a time. I've helped a few fathers directly, step by step with, getting their children back. And they got more time than I do. So I appreciate that. And we just, do work in the community. I'm on the panel for Wichita Police Department for that diversity and inclusion. I'm on the Parent Advisory Council for the Urban League in my city. I'm trying to make it like the hub where everybody knows that Black people could come together and, do things together. And, we're just working on a lot of different things. I work in the schools, I work in group homes, just trying to be on the ground, life coaching, a lot of different things. So I appreciate it.
I love it. I love the breadth and the depth of experience that you're bringing to this conversation. So I wanted to start out by acknowledging all of us have a vested interest, right, in Black fathers. Like that is something that's clearly been articulated in the way in which we've all introduced ourselves. And I'm curious, again, because I'm a nerd, I'm a curious person, and I like to know what motivates your interest in working in this population. Like Derek, you just spoke about your lived experience as a father trying to navigate the family welfare system. But for everybody else, like why Black dads? Like you could have picked anything to have an interest in. You could have focused on anything, Dr. Bolar, academically. Why did we pick and kind of center our work and ourselves around this population?
For me personally, it was both personal and professional, right? And honestly, I guess this kind of may go into another question, but I had just an amazing father, and I know what that meant for me as an individual. And when I was really thinking about it, so I've always kind of had this child-centered approach of like, what's going to promote the best well-being for children? And it's really that, that home environment, like what is their relationship like with their parents? And when thinking about the family, I really honestly see it in a systemic way. But what is a big part of that foundation? And it really is like dads, they add something qualitatively unique to the lives of their children. And the research is so clear on that. It's different with respect to, the impact that they make, and that impact is meaningful. And to really be able to give a voice to that, and then going in the research and kind of honestly using research to make a difference, but then also to combat the dominant narrative that we see, not just in research, but sometimes even in media, and really get the real stories, of these fathers, because Black dads really do show up. Right. I saw our center, they were just showing that 70% of Black fathers are really highly engaged in some of those basic caregiving activities, such as, feeding their children, bathing their children. And how many times do we hear that narrative? We don't.
Come on, Dr. Bolar, say it again. Say that statistic one more time. I need you just to say it one more time for us. Tell us again.
About 70% of African-American fathers are highly engaged in caregiving activities, when compared to their counterparts, more so than European-American fathers, Hispanic fathers. And that's just something that we don't necessarily hear, right? And so how can we, use research to shift the narrative? But not just that, but to understand in a holistic way what's really going on, so like this is a part of my heartbeat, both personally as well as professionally, because a lot of times when we think about parenting, oftentimes people just think about mothering, but it's both, and there's unique things that are added, right? Yeah. And so
Yeah.
we have to understand what's added uniquely and celebrate that and inform so that people know, no, what you provide is so special,
Mhm.
you know?
Mhm.
And it's like, there's so much, but I'm not going to talk too much. I think it's just a part of who I am,
Yes.
and I just, our fathers, our men, they matter. And we have to do the work that reflects that,
I love it. I love it. So let me ask the men of the panel, what comes up for you when you hear her talk, when you hear her speak like that about the contribution that Black fathers make in the lives of their children? What was that like for you to hear her say? Because that was all unscripted. Like that was just an overflow of what is in Dr. Bolar.
Right,
That is what she carries inside of her, the blessing that she is. And so I would invite you guys to respond. Like what was that like to hear her articulate that as Black men?
I just appreciate it, to be honest with you. It's always good to know that, as a Black father, I know these things. I know I'm involved. I know other Black fathers involved, but to see it from especially
Right.
our Black women,
Right.
who a lot of times society tries to pit us against and say we're enemies of, and we're
Right.
not. But they want to make it seem like we can't stand each other. We're
Right.
pitted against each other, and so it's good to hear that coming from an African American woman, to learn to lift the brothers up, to let them know, hey, no, they are paying attention. They do recognize, apart from what the world may say or society may say, no, they are recognizing that you are doing your job and they appreciate it.
Right.
I love it.
I think I mean, for me, I'm like my brother Williams. He says you're doing the work, and you hear like fathers aren't there, Black fathers aren't there. I'll speak from my experience growing up. Almost all of my friends growing up had their dad in their household. I come from Roosevelt, New York, and they had their fathers. Like there wasn't, it was a rarity, to have someone without, their parent in their household. I think I had one friend that had like a stepdad, in their household. But so when you started hearing the statistics that fathers aren't there, you're like, really? They're not? Like just blowing my mind. Like, I don't see it. Doesn't make it not true, but you're just like, wow, So it's great to hear the real statistics about what's happening in our communities, because I think our fathers are more involved. We focus on, especially the baby years, the growth, the toddler years. We know how important those years are. So it's always good that this information is out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Because the mantra from the 80s, right? That I grew up, I'm an 80s baby. And that mantra was Black dads aren't there. Black dads don't show up. Black dads are absent, right? Like we all come from broken families. And AD, you're making me think about like just my own upbringing. And I have to give a shout out to my father, who's literally in the background of my house right now, watching my babies so that they don't disrupt this webinar for me. Like that's my dad, right? And so he was a military man, 4 children. Here's a little person. Granddad's clearly not doing his job. We'll just put it out there. Like, hey, go see Granddad. So I grew up with a military father, lots of cousins, lots of uncles and aunties. And as I'm thinking about it, AD, you made me stop and think. And I was like, yeah, nobody grew up without a dad. Like, even if it was a blended family, right? Like my uncles stepped in and took care of my cousins that biologically were not their children, right? And so that truth is there. And I think it's so helpful that we're starting to shine that light on it, because I do think, I mean, y'all can disagree with me if you want to, it's fine. We're having a discussion. Is the narrative true that we keep hearing? Because we still hear that information that says Black dads don't show up. Black dads aren't turning up for their kids. Black dads are absent. They don't care. They don't go to court. They don't fight for custody of their kids.
Right.
And I think, but then when you actually look at research and you look at the literature, right, it says statistics like what Dr. Bolar shared, it just blows it all out of the water, which is crazy that's not more, I guess, commonplace.
Right.
And that's not more automatic understanding that people have of the Black family.
Right.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to say real quick that speaking to the dads not showing up, I would say that part of those numbers, the reason why is because family court is a tough situation. I
Mm.
mean, you have to be on a different mindset to be able to navigate the family court system, especially whether you by yourself or you have an attorney, because it's going to cost a lot of money to pay for your attorney. And then, with me, I filed motions to see my son because I felt like I deserve more time with my son. And they tell me, like, yo, you looking out for your own interests. But I can promise you, if I was looking out for my own interests, I wouldn't be standing in front of no judge, in no
Right.
court.
Right.
You know, if I was looking out for my own interests, I probably wouldn't be living in Kansas. I would be living in Florida somewhere. But,
Right.
I'm here for my son. And, I keep going through this situation. And, people keep telling me that, I'm not, like, they used to tell me that it's too early to, they don't want to disrupt my son's regular schedule, or he's too young. And then I go back to the house and I got two toddlers in the house running around, that I have with my wife, and they're younger than my oldest. So, that type of stuff will frustrate you.
Right.
And then it might make certain people be like, throw up their hands like, man, I'll just wait. I know plenty of dudes who be like, man, I'll just wait till my son is 13, 14 years old and wait for them to contact me. That's what my dad did to me. I know plenty of dudes who say that.
I got you.
My dad even told me that, his dad told him, like, yeah, when you get older, just come and look for me. And then my dad turned around and had issues with my mom. And then when I asked him why he wasn't there for me, he told me that that's what he expected I would do, to just come look for him.
Wow.
And it's like, so now it's like generational. Like, I can look back to like 2-3 generations and see broken families. So, it's wild how it goes. So I appreciate Dr. Bolar saying what she said, because, we need Black women to support us. And I'm just getting ready for my Facebook news feed to, be going crazy on Father's Day of all the mothers who, have issues with the dad. But a lot of times it's the courts. I mean, like for instance, real quick, they set up a system where it's like they get you in trouble. So if they say, like, all right, you have to pay such and such by this date, if you miss that, then that's something that they can count against you. So like if they throw lawyer fees, like I gotta pay my ex's lawyer fees. A lawyer that I didn't hire, that I didn't know how much they were paying or charging. Now I gotta pay that. So what if I didn't pay that and the judge say, well, you are disobeying the court? So then they lock me up for a month, or 2 months or 3 months or something. And then something happens while I'm in jail. Now I got a 2-year sentence. It's a stumbling block where it's like, I'm gonna throw this at you, and we don't know how it's gonna end, but hopefully you mess up to where you don't get to see your kid no more. Like if I argue with my son's mom, she can file a PFA on me, and now that makes me look bad. It's like there's different building blocks to get you in trouble, to get you set up, and I think that's part of why a lot of dads aren't around. But I will say that I don't have any friends that are not in their kids' lives, so I do appreciate that fact.
Awesome. That's awesome. Wow.
Is there, so this idea, like, so Derek was just amplifying that, this idea of the absent father. What are other misconceptions or stereotypes that we feel like people have, specifically about Black fathers, but, fathers in general? I often think of like the Homer Simpson trope, like whenever you see dads most of the time on television, they're always slightly incompetent. Like they're always like idiots. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to change a diaper. They don't know how to make a bottle. Like they're just like Homer Simpson. But are there other tropes? Are there other stereotypes or misconceptions that y'all have come across in the work that you're doing, in the lives that you're living?
I'll just say for me, when we were having our first, my goal was not to be that TV dad. I literally was like, I refuse to be nervous or like don't know what to do with this kid when mom has to go out. Just, and So I was always in, okay, we're doing this. Okay, that's the best way to change the diaper. Okay, fix that. Okay, I got this. Okay, what time we go to bed? So we created a system, I know when to put my son, because he's the oldest, to sleep. And I figured it out. Like I didn't want to be that dad. I didn't want to be the one that gets confused, don't know, got a call like, hey, what do you do with, I know what he eats. I know
Where are
how
the
he eats.
diapers?
Right. Where the diapers at? Like what I never wanted to be that dad. So
Yeah.
it's funny that you say that. Like I made it a mission not to be that dad. So
That's awesome.
that's my
Beautiful.
goal. That was my personal.
Yeah. AD, you make me think, like, this is just me sharing a real short story real fast. My son is the oldest, and I remember when he was born, my
Yeah.
husband said, so we're in the hospital, right? Like he's
Right.
a couple hours old, and the nurse comes in to give him his first bath. And my husband's like, I want to do that.
Right.
And she stopped and looked at him, and she was like, what? And he was like, I want to do that. I'm gonna give my son his first bath. So he did that. She let
Wow.
him do that. She showed him how to hold him and how to do it.
Right.
And then she ran, I'll never forget, she went down the ward and told all the other nurses on the ward, and they all came in to shake my husband's hand. And they were like, you are the first dad that we have
Wow.
ever had, ever.
Yeah.
How long has the hospital been there, right?
Right.
Years. Sometimes they have babies in and out that ward. And they were
Right.
like, you the first dad that's ever volunteered to do it for first bath. Like
Right.
my husband's, he could not have been more proud. Like his chest was so popped out. Like it was so, he was like, look at me, right? Like,
That's awesome.
yeah, not wanting to be that TV dad who can't do those kind of basic care
Right.
things. Yeah. Anything else?
Well,
I'm
I'll
glad
just
it-
say,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Are you sure? Okay.
Yes, fine.
So I'm glad you brought that up about, the kind of that stereotype. It's so funny that you asked that question, because the Institute for Family Studies just did a little small piece on this, talking about, this research. And in addition to, this kind of stereotype of fathers, kind of not being as competent as moms, what we do see is that both fathers and mothers have hormonal as well as changes in their brain activity after a child is born. And that also kind of promotes bonding and nurturing, not just in in both genders. And so it's not just moms who have these hormonal changes, it's also dads who do as well, and even changes in their brain activity. So, and sometimes there's this idea that maybe fathers are not as nurturing or as empathic, but that happens to both. And when we're thinking about attachment, which, occurs from about 0 until about 6 to 8 months, a baby will, create like a primary attachment. It doesn't matter if it's a mom or dad, like whoever is there consistently meeting their needs and nurturing them, I think kind of combat some of those myths. So I just wanted to kind of highlight that as well.
I love it. Baby yelling daddy. I love it.
All right.
David, what were you gonna say?
all right.
Well, I'm just going to speak to some of those misconceptions, because I know that, oftentimes too, people see fathers as supposed to be the financial providers, and they don't have a real significant role in the social and emotional development of the children, right? And so I often see that, and that belief, and that, which is, of course, is definitely a myth. I mean, I'm definitely involved in my kids' social and emotional development, talking to them and encouraging them, and asking them questions. And sometimes they act like they don't want to answer, but they eventually tell me more than what I asked. And so I think fathers are, like I said, I think it's just a big misconception that men are can only be financial providers for the household. And also too, speaking to just kind of what AD said, and going back to men being adequate parents. A lot of people get surprised. You be out, and I remember being out with my boys, and having my sons, and just doing regular parent things, not dad things, just regular parent things. But people looking like, oh my God, patting you on the back, and I'm like, for what? I'm a parent, what I mean? Like I'm parenting my child,
Right.
Now before, when I was young, I didn't really know any better. So I really accepted all those pats on the back. I thought, yeah, because I fed into that too. Like, yeah, dads don't really, thinking dads don't really do this. And then the more I grew, the more I got around more men, especially more African American fathers, and realized that no, this is just what dads do, because that's what my dad did. He just parented, and so yeah, I begin to like correct people when they say, hey, oh wow, you're doing so good for a dad. And I'm like, yeah, thank you, but I'm a parent, so this is what I'm supposed to do. Like you said, changing diapers. I mean, I've been babysitting kids since I was one, and so I mean, I learned to change diapers then. So it's yeah, I think that's kind of the big misconception, is that dads are inadequate parents, and whenever someone see them parenting well or out with their kids, it's like, oh wow, especially Black fathers, oh wow, he's with his kid and he's got his kid, and where's the mom? Oh no, he's and so yeah, I think that's just a couple I noticed and deal with personally as a Black father.
So that's like a really lovely segue into my next question, which is, and Dr. Bolar spoke to this in the beginning when she was introducing herself and talking about what motivated her involvement with Black dads. She spoke about a uniqueness, right, that Black fathers bring to the table, that Black fathers bring into the home, that can't necessarily be created by other people in other spaces. And so I wanted to ask you all about that. Like, what are the strengths of Black fatherhood? What are the things that make Black fatherhood unique? Can anybody speak to that piece of the uniqueness or the specialness that comes along with Black fatherhood, and what that means, not just to necessarily in the life of a child or in the existence of a family, but also within the wider community, right? To the church, to the neighborhood, to the street, right? What are strengths of Black fathers?
So I guess I'll jump in there. It's always like double dutch.
Go ahead.
Who's jumping in? All right, so I'll start. I guess one of the big factors is a sense of peace, and comfort, within the household. As men and Black men, we set the tone to a lot of what happens in our home, and our children, and we know, like, especially when they're younger, they respond to how we feel. And so I think as a father, as a Black dad, setting the tone in our households and in our community is key. And it's that consistency. That consistency is big, because even I just remember being a child, like someone that tells you something, but they ain't consistent, you kind of look at them like, yeah, but that person that's like on the job and they come to you, it's a certain respect, because like they always holding it down. They're always on the mark. They're always in place. Like, I hear you, Mr. Such and such. I think it's that consistency that we present to our communities that makes a huge difference. Makes a huge difference. And I think when we get into trouble, we need someone we know. I know my brother Williams is on the wall. He's gonna be there at his post, and I can come to him and see him, because here in his household, he's that consistent dude. I know I'm gonna have to hear it, but that's the one I go to.
I love it. Thanks for lifting that up, AD. Derek, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say that I think that we are unique because, like, I push my son, like I want him to be, higher than what he is. I want him to be better than what I was. I want him to, have the information that I didn't have. Like when I was in 4th grade, I quit playing the saxophone because I didn't like bringing it home. It was heavy and I wanted to run around and play. But I take that and I wish that I had, a dad, because my dad wasn't around like that. So I wish that I had somebody who would have been able to tell me, to keep playing it. But through my dad not being around, I flip it to see how important dads are. Because I can remember when I was a young teenager, and for some odd reason, my mindset changed. Like I would just say wild, just wild things around my like my grandma and my mom. And my uncle had to come and check me, like, why are you talking like that? They don't, that's not how you talk. But if I wouldn't have had him, I would have continued talking like that and not seeing anything wrong with it. And sometimes when we raised by women, we don't always take to the information that they give us, even if it's correct. We don't always accept it like we would from a male. And so that's where I see the importance is, to see somebody that you can see yourself in and they're giving you the information like this is what I should have done, or this is what I did do to become successful, or this is what I'm working on. I think it's important for like my son to see me, at one level and then get better at something, because then he'd be like, oh dad, you got better. Or he learns that, okay, you can start from one position and then level up. I think that's important. So that's why I see the importance of Black dads is, I see it through my dad not being around, but me being around for my son. And growing up in this era, a lot of the young dudes that I know who didn't have dads, they're in their kids' lives. And I'm talking about dudes with, tattoos all over their face, in and out of jail. Some dudes, you would look at him like he can't get right, but he want to be with his kid. It's just other things that's in the way, societal issues and all that other stuff. But that's the importance for me.
I love it. Thanks, Jared. That was beautiful. That was really beautiful.
I would say a strength, I guess. I do like what Brother AD said about consistency, because I definitely lead my households like for, as for me and my house, I don't care what's going on the outside, but as for me and my house, this is what goes down. So I definitely agree with that. But also like to say, like, as far as like a strength that as Black fathers draw from, it comes from like history. And then we've got a determination from that history. I mean, being brought over here and meant to be controlled and enslaved, yet still fighting against that, because our natural desire is not to be controlled and enslaved, because it's not where we were meant to be, it's not where we're called to be. And in being oppressed, still wanting to be fathers. They were still determined to be fathers and be present, even as slaves, even as they were beaten and humiliated. They were still determined to be fathers, to be husbands, even at the pain of death, to do this. And then those that followed were determined to not let those sacrifices be in vain. And so they were determined to, no matter what, Jim Crow, I mean, we're going to deal with Jim Crow. We're going to deal with all these unjust laws that were put in place and to hold us back, to bring us down. Yet we're going to be determined to fight to be, present in our family. We may have to deal with a little bit of embarrassment. We may have to step off the curb when a white man's coming down, but I am going to be there for my kid. I'm going to, so, and then the ones that come after that, we want to make sure again that, hey, those sacrifices that they did, the things we were not meant to be, we're going to be those things, because the sacrifices that were made, we're determined to overcome. We're determined to be what we were not called to, what they didn't want us to be, but what we were called to be. And so I think that's kind of what we have that's unique to Black fathers, is our history. I mean, to other fathers, is our history. And what that history instilled in us, this determination that we're going to be fathers no matter what. We're going to do it. It's nothing. So at this point, it's like, there's really, what can you do to me? We're still going to fight. I mean, we talk about the system, which again is an antiquated system designed to keep fathers out of the lives of their kids, especially Black fathers. I mean, that's where this comes from, is in the 70s where we install these systems, in the 60s and 70s where we install these systems where you can't, hey, fathers are, unemployment is up, and fathers can't be in the lives of their kids. So we install these welfare systems. Well, welfare systems say father can't be in the house, or you can't have a man not working in the house. So he got to get out. And we're going to replace him with them. So all these barriers, all these obstacles to fathers being in life, we were so determined that no matter what, even these obstacles, so like I said, my brother, he's still fighting. He's out there hug a dad, put these programs in so we can break down these barriers. He's determined. No matter what, in spite of his situation, in spite of what he's gone through, in spite of all that, he's still determined to be a father present in the lives of his children. And then that's what we have that other people don't, that other fathers don't. They never had to deal with that oppression. They never had to deal with these barriers, but we've had to, and we're still fighting. So again, that's, to me, I think is the biggest strength, is that determination built on the backs of the people that came before us.
I love it.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. I appreciate you.
That was a whole sermon right there. That was a whole
Yeah.
word. Like, did y'all feel that? Because I felt that. That was
That was
beautiful.
good. That was good.
That was so good. That was so good. Dr. Bolar, what are your thoughts?
I mean, honestly, I'm in agreement with what everyone has said. And I believe that something that that Mr. Reynolds said that really stuck with me, he said he could see himself in, like, that's what Black fathers bring, like being able to, see yourself in that man, even when he was saying, like, with his uncle, there's something about that bass in the voice. I use it all the time. I don't have that bass in the voice all the time. So I'm like, I need some help, Ronnie. But they have a living example of what it means to stand in the face of adversity. And so that resilience is unique to us, just like DeWilliams was saying, like that is unique to our experience. And to be able to stand and show up in spite of that, honestly, historical trauma that still has residue that is being experienced today, and to still be able to stand, to still be able to show up, it's a living example that challenges will happen, but you still have to press forward. And I'm that example. Look at me. And I'm showing up for you. And so it gives them an opportunity to show up for themselves, because they have this example before their eyes, whether it is a live-in father or another, substitute. It is very, very powerful, because you understand, even if it's on a young level, a teenager. We don't know what it's like. I mean, I don't know what it's like to be a young, teenage boy, but a father does, and so it can be very powerful just to have that example and to get that insight from them.
I was thinking about, it's an echo of what Brother Williams said so eloquently. I think it's a certain type of person on this earth gets blessed to be Black. Be a Black man and to exist in this world and to have the history that we have, the weight of that history on your shoulders, right? To have the call of the ancestors, to want to do better, to be more. I think that is something that is unique to the Black experience. I think that Black fathers are able to establish and speak identity over their children in a way that hungry hearts are so quick to receive, right? They're so desperate to receive that affirmation. And I think that Black fathers instill purpose. A lot of the time, that's the thing like that I think I associate the most with Black fathers. In my own life, like I would say my mom taught me how to be a person. Like my mom taught me how to be Kelly. Like my mom was like, and this is how we eat, and this is how we stay clean, right? This is how girls act. But when it came to who are you and what are you called to do on this earth, that was my father speaking over me. My dad was always talking about service to others. My dad was always talking about being out in the community, being engaged, right? My dad was always a source of wisdom and advice, right? That you could go to, this like safe harbor that you could be docked at. And so for me, I think like moms in my brain establish personhood in a child, but I think that purpose is established by their father. And I think that Black men have that unique, they call out what is not as though it is. And they nurture that to come into fruition. And it is such a powerful, necessary, needed, desperately needed thing, right? Phenomenon that we see happening in families. But that was what came to my mind. So I made a list. Y'all said peace and comfort. We have identity and purpose. We have consistency. We have talking about knowing how to navigate broken systems and how to navigate a history that is, horrendous and traumatic. Being a living example. Like these are all like, I just want us to be able to like, I wish we could just hold all the words, but these are the things talking about. This is what the fruit of our conversation is. Like, this is what we bring to the table that is unique and diverse and beautiful and needed in the world.
I just want to add one thing that a lot of
Yeah.
people don't, that I think is missing is like mannerisms. You know, how you act, how you know present yourself. You know, how you talk to your friends. You know, do you know how, you know, like proper male etiquette in a boys' bathroom or a boys' locker room? You know, like how do you learn these things? And the reason why I think about that is, you know, when I'm in the morning getting dressed for work, my son sees me getting dressed, you know, he takes notice and he might say, you know, like, I like that shirt. He might say, I don't like that shirt. And, you know, he tells me like, oh, he seen me putting on a vest over my shirt one time. He's like, oh yeah, I like that vest. Can you buy me a vest like that? You know, so it made me see this is how he's gaining his style. This is how he sees what he like or what he don't like is from me, you know, because obviously you can't see that from his mom. And, you know, I don't want him to learn how to get dressed in the fashion that a woman gets dressed. I want him to get dressed like, you know, like I do, like a man do. I want him to use the bathroom in the way that a male does, you know. So I think that when you don't have a dad around and you're missing that, you know, like you see what you are, you know, you don't get the chance to learn these small intrinsic things that, you know, you need as far as being a boy. Like I know a mom who has a son who's, you know, like 6 foot and he's like in middle school. She don't necessarily know how to dress him or, you know, how to approach, you know, different things with him, you know, how to kind of teach him, like his maturity has to catch up to his size. And she can't really give him some of those tools that he need. So I just think it's, you know, certain things that mothers can't bring to the table that, you know, you need dads around is for those everyday life experiences.
I love that. Yeah. And I would say, and just to piggyback off of that, like we talked about the navigation of broken systems, right? Like we live in a world of white supremacy. We live in a world of anti-Blackness. We live in a world that definitely glorifies capitalism and kind of that grind culture. And so in order to know how to navigate and survive those systems, you need that input. And it's Black men that bring that input up to another Black man to say, this is how you survive the system. This is how you navigate the system, right? Like this is how you stand up in the midst of the system and press on. And that's not necessarily, that's something that you lose when you exist outside of the culture, right? And so I just wanted to make sure that we lifted that up as well. Like there's some broken systems, and the ones who know how to navigate those systems know, because we are all the children that survived, right? Like we the ones that survived Jim Crow, we the ones that survived slavery, we the ones that survived the Middle Passage. And so we transfer that knowledge onto our young, so that they know how to navigate these broken systems until we have some sort of like reconciliation, reparations, glorified state. Something's going to have to happen to get rid of the white supremacy and the anti-Blackness, right? So whatever that is coming, we just waiting and hope. I wanted to ask the question, so maybe my last question, depending on how much we're talking, we'll see. But what does it look like to celebrate Black fatherhood in the work that you do? Or how do you kind of embody celebrating Black fatherhood, recognizing Black fatherhood in the work and in the way that you go about your daily lives? You know, echoing what Dr. Bolar said, with this is personal and professional. And I saw everybody's head nod when she said that. So recognizing that, like, this is personal and it's professional. So how do we go about celebrating Black fatherhood? What does that look like in your day-to-day?
I guess I'll go first. I think it's a balance. It's a good and a bad to a yin and a yang, because it's like I think Mr. Williams was saying earlier. You know, when you talk about celebration, you know, like I could be on a walk with my kids, you know, with my 3 kids, or whether it's 2 or 3 or whatever, and you know, like the waves I get is crazy. Like I feel like in the neighborhood, I just signed a record deal and everybody know about it. And I'm about to make it out the hood because like the love is crazy, man. Like, man, I was like, I got to do this more often because it's like, it's like, you appreciate the love, but
Yes.
then it's like, I'm doing a normal thing. Like Mr. Williams was saying, like, I'm just walking my kids to the store, like, really, and it'd be like people be like, keep up the good work, you're doing great or something. It's like I could have just gave my kids a whooping, for no reason, and then walked to the store. You wouldn't even know.
Mhm.
So, so it's kind of like the bar is set really low for us. I remember one time I was just sitting in the car changing my son while my wife went into the store, and this lady like looking all in my car like, oh my God, like what? Like you'd have thought I had a rocket launcher in the car. She's just like, like, man, and it's like I appreciate the celebration and that, but you got to understand that this is a normal thing. So celebrating dads, I think mostly is just showing the respect, like just not putting us down, not trying to use your position as the mom to make our position less important because motherhood is very important. There's no way we can touch, carrying a child for 9 months and giving birth. I've been there. I've seen it, happen twice with my two youngest, and there's no way I can top that. I can acknowledge that with no problem. I don't want no parts of that. So it's like I don't have no knock against women. I love what y'all do. I love what y'all bring to the table. And I just want it to be reciprocated to understand, like, it's not a knock when we say, this kid needs a dad because you can't teach him how to be a man. It's not a knock when you say that. It's not a knock to say, well, he needs to be around his dad more often. A lot of times I think moms look at it like, no, I can do it. I could do it by myself. But that's not the goal. The goal is for us to do it together and for him or her to get what they need. And there's certain things that moms can't bring, just like there's definitely certain things dads can't bring. And I just think we need to not be offended and learn how to work together and keep up the shout outs because I love it when I'm walking, keep up the praise because it's cool.
Oh, listen, you said something that kind of stuck, and I'm sure everyone heard that low bar though.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you took the kid out the car. Woo! Like, what? What? I think in a certain way, like we need to kind of raise the bar, challenge ourselves more. and because I think and tell me, my brothers, if I'm wrong, like when you with your children and you see another black man with their children, it's kind of like the head nod of respect, like we doing this. we doing this. We doing this. So I mean, celebratory. I mean, and I know we roll it into Father's Day. I'm gonna shout my family out because they always take care of me. So I always make sure when people start with they don't get, mothers get all. I get a lot of love in this household. So I'm blessed. I'm truly blessed. As far as because I feel like, and hopefully I don't divert too far off the question, but when it comes to us and fatherhood, and brothers, correct me if I'm wrong, I think with the baby stuff, we focused. We're like, we're gonna get this baby walking, we're gonna get this baby to sleep, get them on the schedule, like we're gonna get them, they're gonna learn to read, they're gonna learn to write, they're gonna get these basics. I think for us, and I'm gonna just be transparent with myself, the next levels are like teenage levels, navigating that shift, that change. And maybe I'm getting older and sensitive, moments I'm like, man, I miss my baby. Like I got this new child in this household now. Like, where did my little baby go? So it's learning how to stick to our children when they go through that change or that shift, and being around and things of that nature. But yeah, the celebratory is always cool, but we should raise the bar, like with certain things we do. we, you know, being around is what we're supposed to be doing. You know, like remember Chris Rock was like, that's what you're supposed to do. Like this should be a party for the things you're just supposed to be doing. But like I said, like I'm with you, Derek, though, like feeling like he said, like you got the record deal, like there you go. There you
Yeah.
go, you know. It's always good, but we need to raise the bar because like Dr. Bolar said with the statistics, you know, we're doing it. We've been doing it.
Come on.
Everybody else just needs to kind of catch up and know what we've been doing. So now we just need to take it to another level.
And one thing real quick, I just want to say one sentence. Black men don't take surveys like that anyway, so they don't know how many black men is in their kids' lives.
True.
That was real. That was very real.
And D, I'm one of those guys too. That's like, you know, I see you. I'm like, hey man, you know, hey and nod, good job. You know, as
Yeah.
I just said, like, you know, what I mean, that's the parenting thing. But like, I'm in Dallas, and we have this huge hill, and I work out with a group of guys,
Okay.
and you know, we're all fathers. We all go to the same church and everything, and we're real close friends. And I saw another African American father, young guy, you know, coming there with his daughter and his wife. And I was, you know, for me, I was like, it's the same thing I do when I see a little young girl wearing her hair natural. I just blow it up, you know.
Right.
I tell her how great it is or how beautiful she is. Well, the same thing with this guy. I was like, man, every time I see him, we're finishing up our workout and he's coming up to run the hills with his family. And I'm just like, as I'm leaving, I was always like giving that, like, man, I just love it. Like I'm so, you know, glad because I know that we're here.
Right.
We know that we're here,
Right.
but the world doesn't know that we're here, you know. And so I'm glad that you're just another Black father out there doing just your job, you
Right.
know. You know, that's it, you know. But also too, with the fathers I do come in contact with, the ones that I mentor or the ones that I talk to, I just give them praise, you know. I got a thing I call when I talk to my fathers, I call it, and we kind of alluded to it earlier when someone said their uncles. Ray, I think you were talking about your uncle standing in for your cousins who wasn't there. And so I call that what I call it when I tell the fathers is like we got to stand in the gap, you know. I always tell the fathers like we got to stand in the gap for these kids who don't have fathers. And so I'm always, for those fathers who go out there with me to stand in the gap, whether they're mentoring other kids or doing other things, I always kind of let them know that I greatly appreciate it. And so I think it's just always about validation and affirmation, right? Like with these fathers that I have to mentor or I'm talking to or I'm encouraging, when they come to me and they're talking about some of the issues that they're going through, well, my first thing is I want to validate them. You know, I want them to know, man, what you're going through, it's real. And you have a right to feel how you're feeling. You know, this system is jacked up. You know, I totally understand, you know, before asking them, okay, now what can you do yourself to help with this situation? Because we don't want to get stuck right here feeling sorry for ourselves. But at the same time, I do want you to know that I know what you're going through and I do understand, you know. So I think validating, because I think most people want validation. They need someone before you say anything. They need someone to say, okay, you know what, you're right, man, that sucks, that stinks, and you're being heard. And then I think we have to affirm them, you know, and the things that they are doing, right? You know, like you said, yeah, you know what I mean, like, man, you know, but what you are doing, you know, you're going to court, you're you know, you're showing up for the classes that you're mandated to take, you know, because I always tell them like, hey man, in the end, when I talk to my fathers, like, life doesn't care. Life just doesn't care. Doesn't care that your boss is not giving you overtime. Sorry about this light. So, you know, it doesn't care that, you know, kid's sick. It doesn't care. It just does not care, you know? And so I told him in the end, we just got to do what we're supposed to do. Keep showing up, you know, for your kid. Keep, you know, fighting for your kid. Because again, that's the same. I just want to know that someone's there fighting for them, you know? And so, like I said, you know, with these programs, I really appreciate it because, again, like I said, it helps those fathers know that they got somebody in their corner who's recognizing them and who's willing to help them. And so I think that we have to validate these fathers and we have to affirm them. And again, I mean, we talk about what people talk about what their love language is. We talk about relationships, like, I think everybody likes to be affirmed. Definitely my love language is affirmation, words of affirmation. I was told, and I think as far as like African American women to celebrate, I mean, I was told when I'm talking to, even when I was I would counsel young, and we have young married couples, right? And they were coming, they were like, hey, this is what we're going through. And I would tell the women, like, affirming that man. I said, you can tell a husband that, oh, the way you put that nail in that wood, ain't no man do it. We can nail driving nail, and then all of a sudden he feels like he's 10 feet tall. You know what I mean? Like, when you validate a man, father, husband, whatever, it does something to him, to his self-esteem, and he rises up. And so I think, to me, those things are key, even from another man, because sometimes as men, we think we don't want to say anything because we're afraid that we don't have it all together, especially in our culture, right? It's like, I'm not going to tell another man what I'm going through, what I'm struggling with, because as Black men, we got to have it all together. But when you know that, hey, no, bro, I don't have it all together. I'm working through it just like you, and I appreciate what you're doing. I see what you're doing, and what you're doing is great. And so again, I want to belabor it, but I just think validating and affirming these men is key. It's a big part of it, not key, but it's
I just want to piggyback off of what you're saying, because something came to my mind in answer to the question. And so this idea of validation, like, so people that are watching this, right? If you're a professional, or if you're a researcher, or you're just, you're just a mom, or you're an auntie, or you're a grandmother, and you're like, I was curious, I want to know what this session was about. And you're watching this and you're thinking to yourself, well, how can I celebrate Black fathers? I would say one of the biggest ways that you can celebrate Black fathers is by assuming that they are present in a child's life. And so I can't tell you the number of times that, like, I go to doctor's appointments, or I go to the dentist, or I go to the hospital, or I go up to the school, or whatever. And the assumption is always, I'm a Black single mother. They never assume that my husband's around. They're always surprised if I say, can you send the email to him too? Like, you go send me the notes in the meeting. Can you send the email to him too? Oh, you want me to email him? Yes. Like, they are always floored when I put his cell phone number down, and or if he shows, God forbid, if he shows up to a meeting, right? Like, because he will go. If he can go, he'll be there. And if he can't physically be there, if he can get in on Zoom, he will be there by phone. But the assumption is, I am a single Black mother, and that is how I'm treated. And it gets really tiring at times to constantly be standing and saying, yeah, but I'm married. No, his dad's involved. No, we're not separated. We're married. We same house. Like, yes, his father's actively involved. Or people are shocked and surprised. Again, going back to y'all saying about the low bar and you being applauded for basic things. It winds my husband up to no end when he goes out and, like, he's at Walmart, he's shopping for shoes, and the mom's like, oh my gosh, do you know your son's shoe size? And he's like, yes, I know my son's. Your wife didn't have to write it down for you? And he's like, no, I know my kids' shoe sizes. I know what size clothing they wear. I know what medication they take and how to give it to them. So I just think, like, the assumption that Black men are involved in active fathers might be one really basic way of, like, celebrating Black fatherhood. So if you're thinking to yourself, what can I do? Assume that he's involved, and treat that family or treat that system likewise. Dr. Bolar, what are your thoughts, darling?
Yes. You all have said so many things. So I have a few. A couple are practical, and then I also think in respect to how do I celebrate fathers in my work. So I think a lot of times, even when it comes time to celebrate fathers, like truly celebrate them, I think sometimes it's kind of like, well, it's almost like when you have a party and there are people who didn't show up. You don't talk about the people who didn't show up. You talk about and you celebrate the people who are actually showed up and showed their love. And I think sometimes when it comes to celebrating fathers, people are like, well, I know a lot of fathers aren't doing this, but thank goodness for this father, that father. We don't even have, if we're celebrating, we don't even have to address that. Right? Like, if we're really celebrating, let's really celebrate. Let's celebrate the people who showed up to the party, who love us, and who are doing the work. right?
That's
We don't have to speak to that because in essence, it's almost like downplaying the people who showed up. Right. And so we just really need to really celebrate the people who showed up. And I feel like Mr. Williams is like takes all my little points. I'm like, oh, okay, he said that. But I think another part of that, like with the affirmation, is really appreciation. When you see something, especially as a partner, like as a, a spouse or co-parent or what have you, like when you see something, even if it is, what you feel like they're supposed to do, like positive reinforcement goes a long way. And appreciation, you get more from that appreciation. And I think a lot of times, not just even when it comes to fathering, but even sometimes relationally, a lot of times people are pointing out the things that they don't like, which can cause people to feel a little discouraged. But if we can really appreciate and have it be action oriented so that they can't, negate what you said. Like, I really appreciate what you did, A, B, C, D, E, and I think that when people feel appreciated in their own homes, it helps them to feel seen. It's kind of like, I see you, you're different, I see you, and you feel seen, you feel loved, you feel understood. And I think when we appreciate that, it's like a positive feedback loop that makes us feel more grateful. Everybody, it creates more, it also creates more kindness, and it actually creates more commitment, right? And so I think those are very practical things. If we're going to celebrate, and then and appreciate. And I think in the work that I do as a way to celebrate fathers is I try to use a lens that is a strengths-based approach. What are the unique strengths that fathers bring to the table? Not looking at it through a deficit model, kind of, countering the narrative that we see in media, and honestly, even through research. A lot of research, even on fathers, has utilized a deficit model. And so in my approach to celebrate them through the work that I do is bring them to the table, value their voices, use a strengths-based approach whereby it's not like we're feeding through research this narrative that is not really true, that's not really comprehensive of what we know to be true for fathers. Think about my dad. My dad was the one who picked me up from Girls Club. That was before they came together. That shows how old I am. It was just Girls Club back then. It wasn't Boys and Girls Club. We were separate. But he was the one who, he got off earlier than my mom did. He was the one who was picking us up, like, giving ear to those stories. But you have to be intentional on what you're searching for as well. If we're only searching for, what's not there or the deficits, that's not a celebration. That's talking about the people who didn't show up to the party. And if we're going to celebrate, let's celebrate the people who really came.
Wow. 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 This was
It's like a backhanded insult when they say, like what you said, it's just really like, we don't expect them to be here, but thank God for little ones that showed up.
Yeah. It's insulting.
Right. Yeah.
Took that example and turned it all the way on his head. Like, that's gonna make me have pause now. Whenever I'm at a party, Dr. Bolar, I'll think of you. I'll be like, who's being celebrated in this room right now?
Right.
Who are we thankful for? I love that. No, because that approach breeds gratitude. That approach breeds opportunity, right? To an intimacy so it is that self-perpetuating cycle. You have the experience, you are grateful for the experience, it creates opportunity for another experience, and then you have further intimacy, and you just keep going, which is beautiful to think about. So thank you for lifting that up. We are right at a great, like, I'm so happy with how this whole conversation has unfolded. It's perfect. We are right at time for us to be open to ask if there's any questions from people that are watching. So if anybody has any questions or thoughts, comments about anything that's been said, anything that stuck out to you that you will take away with you in listening to this conversation, anything that gave you pause, that you thought to yourself, that's a little piece of nugget information and I'm going to hold on to that, right? We have space, a couple of minutes for that to be amplified, if there are any questions. So yeah, you can unmute yourself or put a question in the chat, I believe, right, Dr. Lemons? We can put
Yes,
questions
people
in the chat.
can unmute themselves. Mhm.
Yes. And
I I actually had a question for Derek Reynolds.
yes.
So I think when we started the conversation, you spoke about, helping dads kind of navigate the system, like court system and things of that nature. Is it like simple information that they miss, or is it more complex? Like, is it small stuff that they miss that kind of creates a misstep, or is it like more complex, like they just need to understand what's really going on?
It's a little bit of both because it's basic. It's like basic complex information. Like, things can get away from you if you are, passionate and you want to be in your kid's life and you feel wrong and you feel like you've had to do a whole bunch to, get where you're at. It's easy to get in there and just, get mad or say something or get into your emotions or, make a mistake. So it's just a simple reminder, like just keep your cool, just keep your cool, keep your cool. If they say this is how you respond. You know, make sure that, you always respond and comment about, wanting to spend time with your kid. Make sure you be clear about what you want. It's basic, but it's complex. Sometimes things that you wouldn't think about. Um, and like you learn, at least I did, there's different stumbling blocks that they put there. Like, all right, we're gonna set this date for this. We're
Right.
gonna set this date for that. We're gonna set this date for that. And then, if you miss one of them dates or, if you pay wrong or, whatever happens, if there's any misstep, then that's okay. Now we could put that on the board as, why
Right.
you're not, good for this situation. But it's always a financial thing. It's never like for my situation, for some of the others I've seen, it's always stuff that's between the mom and the dad. It's not
Right.
like, well, he, returned the kid with this crazy rash or,
Right.
kid got hit by a car or something like safety. It's always like, well, you didn't pay this when you were supposed to pay on this date. You didn't
Gotcha.
pay that. You didn't pay the dentist bill or something like that. And now, you're getting 6 months or something like that. And it's a downhill slope.
I got you. Okay. Thank you.
I just wanted to ask a question for Mr. Reynolds as well, along those same lines, because one of the things that stood out to me is when you said earlier that some fathers are waiting until their children turn like 13, 14 years old to involve themselves. And that just really broke my heart because they're missing so many of the formative years of their children's lives. And I can't even imagine what it would have been like if my father hadn't been in my life until I was 13 or 14 years old. And so I'm wondering, how do we keep these fathers encouraged throughout the process of these various court battles and help them to understand the value of being present early on and not waiting until later? Because I mean, I get the frustration behind it, but the detriment of that, it breaks my heart.
I agree 100%. And I try to tell them, when I come in contact with dads who say stuff like that, I try to, tell them like, no, we need to get on this right now and early as possible. Don't wait. But it's so many people who be like, well, the mom is, making it so difficult for me, or, what I mean, they're trying to take me to court. And there's so many dads, men who have a misconception of court. Like, you know, I know dads, who are still on that, kind of like street mantra, we don't talk to the cops. So they feel like going to court is dealing with the police. And I'll be like, no, it don't have nothing to do with no cops. Like, and then they'd be like, oh, I ain't going, my cousin went and, he had this happen and that happened and now he got to pay this amount of money and that. Like, I'm not even gonna waste my time. They're not gonna give me no time anyway. They're gonna give me every other weekend. They're gonna make me pay this and make me pay that. I'm cool. I don't want to go through it. I'll just wait. And I try to tell them, like, cause I've been there before. I was considering waiting. I had people tell me, like, maybe you should, take a step back, cause this is getting out of hand. But I just kept going, and I just didn't give up. So I try to make sure my influence is on others and show them like I'm doing it, so you could do it as well. And don't wait, cause that's not good. But I know a lot of dudes who think like that.
Thank you.
I did want to comment. So I applaud your consistency and intentionality, Derek, of you making that conscious decision to continue to pursue being in your children's life, in spite of the circumstances. It's rare. I feel like one of the best things that you can do and what you are doing is continuing to share your story, because other men need to know that it is possible. You're not saying that it's easy, but it is possible. My husband, who I've been married to for 18 years, he sought out custody for his son when he was 10 and was awarded the custody and was able to be there for him all the way up till he graduated. Now he's in Georgia, he's living a good life. And it was because he was intentional about making sure. Now, we went to court a lot, but it's the intentionality and the fact that, continue to share your story for those that are listening, because it's what needs to be heard, because people are feeling very disheartened and feeling like it's not worth it, but they are worth it. They are worth the fight. And I applaud you. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank
And I
you.
wanted to say to Mr. Walker, if you're looking for a guest, man, let me know. If you need a guest, I'm trying to get on some
I'm
more
always
podcasts.
open. I was gonna hit both you guys up, you and David, about
Yeah.
being on the show. But I was gonna
Yeah, for
wait
sure,
to the end.
man.
I didn't want to.
It's a really great show. I listened to it. It's awesome.
For sure. And I want to ask Mr. Williams, as from one mentor to another, how do you deal with the younger aggressive youth? Because I work in a boys' home, and a lot of these boys, it's like, yo, these boys is 15 to 17, and they bigger than me, they taller than me, they broad shoulders and stuff. And so I'm in the foster care system, and a lot of these boys, you know, they don't have a dad in their life, or they done beat up their dad, or they don't have no respect for their dad. So I look at it like, if you either feel like or you have beat up your dad, you ain't gonna respect nobody else in the world. So have you ever come across any youth like that, or what kind of youth do you normally mentor?
To be honest with you, I haven't come across anybody that aggressive. I do have some aggressive youth, but none that I can say have beat up their fathers. Thank God. But how I would deal with any of them, and one is that I'm very transparent about my own situations. About my things that I've gone through, situations. So there's nothing they can tell me that I ain't seen or that I ain't shared with them about my own stuff. Because sometimes people want to know, what have you gone through? How can you relate to me, right? And so what I do is I just try to give them my story, where I came from, but also too, I got some people who had rougher lives than I have, right? And sometimes if I'm having trouble reaching a kid, then I'll bring in those people, right? Now they talk a little rougher than me, their language is a little bit different, but the kids understand it and they respect it, and so I just try to meet them where they're at, to be honest with you. And if there's a place where I can't go, I find somebody that can go there with them, right? It's just really about meeting them where they're at, and doing your best to try to understand where they're coming from. If the kid sees you're genuine, because that's where I started. I mean, we talked about, one of the questions was, where your passion for fatherhood stem from? Well, my biggest passion was for youth. I worked with youth since I was 15. So I've been working with youth in my community since I was a kid. But why I started working with fathers was that I was a alcohol course instructor. Kids get caught drinking alcohol, they had to come see me. So I saw the kids time after time getting brought in by their grandparents, their grandmother, their moms, but none of them are getting brought in by their fathers. And so that's really where my passion for fatherhood worked. I figure if I'm going to help these kids, I got to help these fathers. And so I think it just really, again, it's like, we've got to meet these kids where they are so they don't repeat the same patterns that their fathers have done. Right. And so, yeah, I mean, that's just my 2 cents, man. I think just being straight up with them, being open with them, being transparent, and meeting them at their level.
I was just going to add to that
Okay.
really quickly. I'm so glad that you brought up young fathers, Mr. Reynolds, because I'm currently conducting a study with young fathers. And one of the things that I'm learning is that they really do have unique needs that are different than older fathers. So we're talking fathers under the age of 30. And so I wanted to say really quickly, as we think about celebration, I also would want us to think about the diversity among fathers, because there are so many different subgroups of fathers, young fathers, grandfathers, older, middle-aged fathers, that all have unique needs and experiences and bring different strengths to the table. But I will say that there are certain things that our young fathers are struggling with, that are very unique to their developmental stage. So, as we think about how to celebrate, I also want us to think about how we might celebrate younger fathers in a way that is different than ones that are older, and how we sort of wrap our arms around them, because they really need some different things. They're still trying to figure it out. They're young, they have children, they're growing, and sometimes we forget that they're growing even as their children are growing, and they're not always given the same grace that mothers are given. And they do still have that pressure to provide, even though they are still very young and still trying to figure it out themselves. So as we think about celebrating, I encourage you to wrap your arms around a young father this Father's Day, one that is younger than 30, and understand that he is facing some unique challenges that I don't think we yet completely understand as a society.
For sure.
Yeah. And to piggyback off of what Dr. Lemon said, my passion is growing and becoming more thinking about special needs fathers. So fathers that either have a special need or are parenting children with special needs, developmental disabilities, physical disabilities. And so thinking about what their needs might be, right? Thank you, Dr. Lemons, for lifting that up. Thank you. That was so
Can
needed.
I
Yes,
want to
go
ask
ahead,
the
Derek.
mothers. I want to ask the mothers a question really quick. I want to know what you think, or how you perceive the mother thing, where it's like, like, this is my baby. I birthed him, I carried him for 9 months. I know what's best. I remember the Williams brothers would say, like, their dad would say stuff, but their mom would pop up like, no, I gave birth to these kids. These are my children. How do you guys look at that? And, from a perspective of, Black women who are, promoting fatherhood, how do you approach that?
There wouldn't be no baby if there wasn't a daddy.
Most definitely.
I'm like, yes, I carried these babies for 9 months, but they wouldn't have been carried if it hadn't been for my husband. So I feel like we both have equal footing. We try to operate on an equal footing.
I think it's actually going to be an asset to the children and not a liability. And when you can value both perspectives, I think that the entire system is enriched, instead of, just one perspective.
Okay, that's cool. Thank you.
Mhm.
In the last couple of minutes, like seconds that we have, do you guys want to share how people can find you and follow your work? How can people get in contact with you? How can they seek out your work or follow you on social media? Mr. Williams, I'll have you go first, and then Derek, I'll come to you, and then AD, and then Dr. Bolar.
Well, actually, I just do my work through the church, so I don't have independent like the other guys do.
Okay.
So yeah, I just, like I say, do my work through the church, or someone asks me to volunteer or mentor youth, I'll do it that way. But no, I really am not like public service.
Not on social media. Okay, that's nice. That was a nice way of saying I'm not on social media.
Yeah. Social media.
Big Brother does not have my information. That's what you're saying. Message understood. Derek, how can people find you and follow along with what you're doing?
Well, I want to say I respect where Mr. Williams is coming from because he's doing it all strictly, strictly for the kids, no type of notoriety, no nothing. So I do respect that. But I'm at you can find me on Facebook at Hug-A-Dad. If you type in Hug-A-Dad on Google, some of my interviews should pop up. I'm kind of in the middle of website, yes or no, I don't know, but you could definitely find me on Facebook under my name, Derek Reynolds, or Hug-A-Dad. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram. Type that in and you should be able to find me, Hug-A-Dad Foundation.
Thank you, Derek. AD, how can we find you?
So for Mr. Reynolds, I can give you some ideas instead of just doing a website, but we'll get into that.
Okay.
I'm Anthony Walker. You can find me at Brothers of Legacy, everywhere, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn. You can Google us, you'll find us. And we're on, like I said, we're on the podcast, Apple Podcasts, you got Spotify, whatever, Spotify especially, you get the video. So you can find us on all podcast areas and things of that nature. So it's Brothers of Legacy, the Brothers of Legacy. Blue symbol, well, that symbol right there. So just look for that and share. If you like the information, share. We have, like I said, thoughtful conversations kind of like this. We get a little deeper, we get a little silly. It doesn't center around sports. I'm not the sports guy. I do have sports people on the show, but I try to bring it down, make it real basic so people know what's going on, so it doesn't get too deep in that area. But we have great conversation about everything. So definitely check it out. And I'll be talking to these gentlemen to try to get them on as well.
For sure.
Thank you, AD. Dr. Bolar?
Yes, you can find me at upliftingrelationships.com. I do a lot of couples work as well. And then, so that's Uplifting Relationships. Also, there's a community on Facebook, the Uplifting Relationships community, Dr._Cassandra on Instagram.
I love it. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you all for your time. Thank you for just your experiences and sharing and being so open and transparent with all of us here. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Lemons really quickly for our Father's Day video. Yes.
Okay. I'm not sure if you can hear me. We're having a thunderstorm here my way and the power went out.
We can hear you.
You
We
can't
got
hear
you.
me?
We can hear you.
Okay, you can hear me. Okay, great. My power went out for a second. But yes, thank you to everyone. I echo what Kelly has said. Thank you for so graciously hosting and doing such a wonderful job and doing so, and all the preparation and logistics that have gone into this. We thank you for your hard work on this, and we thank you to all of the panelists as well. There was a brief video that we were going to share, but we can always send it by email, just saying Happy Father's Day to each of you. So we'll share that with you. But thank you so much. Have a wonderful weekend. Do nothing if that's what you want to do. It's your day. So enjoy your Father's Day and happy Juneteenth. Happy Juneteenth to each of you as well.
Yes.
Happy
Thank you.
Juneteenth, guys. Thank you so much.
All right, gentlemen, I sent you my number in the chat. If
Yeah.
you guys got it, just text me.
Yeah, I'm about to text you now.